Hi there. Today on Typical Books, we're going to be talking about new books coming out for May. So there are 14 books, 2 of which I have review copies of, and there will be a poll for another book that I want to read up on the Bookworms patron site as well, because I always want to read new books, right? I want to read new books, but there's too many to choose from. I know I impose this problem on everybody who watches because I often see comments about, boy, you're going to break my bank because all these books sound so cool. And really, it's not me making them sound cool. They are cool and the covers look cool. And I love bringing them to you every month. So without further ado, here are 14 books coming out from new authors, exciting big name authors that we love, Horror Writers Association authors, and maybe authors that you've never heard of before. I realize that I rarely ever introduce myself either. I'm Lydia. I curate the new releases page at the Horror Writers Association website. I'm also a writer as well. So I have 3 books of collections of short stories out and a novel that is kind of out of print right now. But hey, you can always ask me about it. And I love reading horror. So here we are, starting out with A Symphony for Walpurgis, a collection by Remy Ungar, May 1st. The cover, it's red on black, and you'll see there's an inverted pentagram and candles. Like, what more do you need? It sort of plays with that color on black theme that seemed to be a trend. The rest of these books are kind of without trends too, which is kind of neat. We were getting into a lot of yellow text and woodcut style covers. Not so this month. It's a real mixed bag. What's the difference between humans and monsters? Is there a fine line, or is it more gray and blurred? Remy explores these questions and more in his latest collection, Symphony for Walpurgis, and it came out in time for Walpurgisnacht. From legendary cryptids to malevolent spirits, Ohio in the 1950s to modern-day California, readers will be treated to 9 terrifying stories of the weird and macabre. So settle down, be prepared, for you have bought your ticket to the Symphony for Walpurgis. I like that. I like the cover. Also on May 1st, we have The Disappearing of Three Forks by K. L. Patrick. And this cover has a man walking down a moonlit or moonless night in a country road, quite desolate, and bloody red text at the top. And these complementary colors kind of work. They stand out here. Deep in the Cumberland Mountains awaits an evil of three forks. Virginia is at its center. An old legend merges with a being beyond comprehension, and Silas has fallen face first into it. Evicted from his apartment and fired from his job as a detective, he is forced to return home to Three Forks, where he finds his parents brutally murdered. Silas is pulled into the local police to help investigate, and as things unfold, he finds a mysterious cabin that morphs with each visit. Add in a mysterious blue mist, I guess this blue mist from the cover, and a freak snowstorm, and you have a recipe for disaster. That always adds another level of high stakes to any story, right? A snowstorm. It adds a level of high stakes to living in Canada every year. I know. On May 6th, we have Below the Grand Hotel by Kat Scully. And I do like the cover of this. It's got this intaglio kind of Art Deco look with some display font as the title, and the author's name is in Futura, I believe. Really awesome font, really awesome use of gold kind of etching on black background. Really eye-catching, and it fits the idea and the era. Mabel Rose Dixon will do anything to become a Ziegfeld girl, including picking the pockets of the wealthy NYC elite. Why not just spell out New York City? People don't really talk like that. OMG, people do not talk like that. NYC elite and the New York City elite to fund her way to stardom. When she picks the wrong pocket, Mabel loses her soul to a hotel run by demons and tumbles into the world of the Grand Hotel, a place where any artist can make it big. A love deal with the devil story. Mabel's greatest wish to be famous is granted. Every night she performs as a starring act to a crowded theater and finds she is never without patrons. But Mabel quickly learns that losing her soul to get everything she ever wanted comes at a much steeper cost than what she bargained for. She must steal her soul back before the grand ball in May's Eve, or become a demon herself forever. Okay, so very high stakes and timely, because this is happening as a May Eve ball. So this is a really good time to read it on its release date. Also on May 6th, we have Overgrowth by Myra Grant. A vivid green and red vine kind of grows up in this sort of deep space looking black background, and the vine itself is encompassing what looks like a very small planet Earth. So it's got this sci-fi eco-horror thing going on just in the cover alone. So I really like when a cover seems to work well. This is a little bit impressionistic but eye-catching. White Roman text for the title and sans serif for the name, a classic combination. Since she was 3 years old, Anastasia Miller has been telling everyone who would listen that she's an alien disguised as a human being. A lot of little kids do think that, at least for a small phase. And that the armada that left her on Earth is coming for her, so she's Invader Zim. Since she was 3 years old, no one has believed her. Now, with an alien signal from the stars being broadcast around the world, humanity is finally starting to realize that it's already been warned, and it may be too late. The invasion is coming. Stasia's biological family is on the way to bring her home, and very few family reunions are willing to cross the gulf of space for one misplaced child. Well, it's a lot more wholesome than Invader Zim, I guess. Now, this book I do have a review copy for. I'll be reading it soon too. I'm reading it a little late because I got sidetracked reading Scurry by Sean Barber, and I'll talk more about that in an upcoming video. I really enjoyed that, and I'm on to reading the rest of my backwards books, like North American Lake Monsters. But I digress. The Butcher's Daughter, the hitherto untold story of Mrs. Lovett by David Demchuk and Corinne Lee Clark, coming out May 6th. I heard David Demchuk talk about this at ConCon last year, so I was pretty excited to read it. A Victorian lady is holding a bloody looking meat pie. Not a meat pie, it looks very appetizing. I like mine kind of overcooked. More cooked than this. Looks quite bloody. Black background and red text in various styles. We have some sans serif and sort of like a display font or letter forms where a graphic designer has actually formed each letter. And there's some subtitling here in an antiquarian font. And I really do enjoy this antiquarian font because it's based on old letter forms, old calligraphy. And it looks very cool. You've no doubt seen this typeface. A lot of book covers use this. I think that the Blood on Satan's Claw uses this as well. London, 1887. At the abandoned apartment of a missing young woman, a dossier of evidence is collected, ordered chronologically, and sent to the Chief Inspector of the London Metropolitan Police, the Met, as it is colloquially known. It contains a frightening correspondence between an inquisitive journalist, Miss Emily Gibson, and the woman that Gibson thinks might be the infamous Mrs. Lovett, Sweeney Todd's accomplice, a wicked woman who baked men into pies and sold them in a pie shop on Fleet Street. The talk of London town, even decades after her horrendous misdeeds. As the woman relays the harrowing account of her life in the unruly and perilous streets of Victorian London, her missives unlock an intricate mystery that brings Miss Gibson closer to the truth, even as that truth may cost her everything. I'm not 100% knowledgeable on the whole Demon Barber of Fleet Street story. Aside from watching Sweeney Todd, I've never read the original play. I don't know much about the story except for like the Johnny Depp movie. I should know more. I feel I should know more, and I think that I will want to know more after reading The Butcher's Daughter. If anyone is interested, I thought I'd interject here that this is a sealskin necklace made by an Inuit artist here in Ottawa, and I picked it up at a trade show that was at my work. So if you're interested, let me know, and I'll let you know who created this gorgeous little piece. And as ever, the nails are from Easy Nails here in Canada. They do semi-cured gel wraps, plain gel wraps, and toenail wraps if you're interested. Now, if the Demon Barber of Fleet Street and his accomplice is not your cup of tea, perhaps The Manor of Dreams by Christina Lee will be. There's a lot of stuff going on this cover. There's a Victorian mansion, and it's surrounded by lilies, and I think tearing through it kind of I wasn't quite sure how this is happening. There's a lady's face, but it's all in monochrome red, and it looks a little like there's a lot going on. It's pretty though. I will give it that. It's got white Futura text. I'm a big fan of Futura. Really cool font, black background, so it's very eye-catching. Vivian Yin is dead. The first Chinese actress to win an Oscar, the trailblazing ingenue rose to fame in the 80s, only to disappear from the spotlight at the height of her career and live out the rest of her life as a recluse. I mean, I would totally do that. I do not blame her one bit. Now her remaining family members are gathered for the reading of her will, and her daughters expect to inherit her childhood home, Victorian's grand sprawling Southern California garden estate. And due to last-minute change in the will, the house is passed on to another family instead, one that has suddenly returned after decades of estrangement. In hopes of staking their claim, both families move into the mansion. Wow, okay, this sounds no fun at all, as Vivian's daughters race to piece together what happened in the last weeks of their mother's life. Disturbing visions and bizarre behaviors start to take hold of everyone in the house, forcing them to realize they are being haunted by something far more sinister and vengeful than their regrets. Now, I know that there is like a literary fixation, if not a film fixation, on the Crazy Rich Asians thing, and this seems like a very cool gothic twist to that. So if you haven't been feeling that trend, I'm definitely feeling this, and I was not really into that trend, that literary trend. This, though, very interesting because it sounds like a gothic, right? So yeah, I'm very interested. I do like warring families and somebody inheriting a cool haunted mansion too, right? I guess if there's a trend in these book covers so far, there is a lot of houses on the covers, but that sounds like a cop-out because there's always houses on the covers of horror books. Red Walls by Christina Bergling, and this comes out on May 9th as well. It's a black woodcut kind of on a fleshy paper backdrop, and it features an old house in the forest with a red light on in the attic, which is super ominous. Very interesting, almost felt marker looking font, which wouldn't really go in my mind with something that looks like a woodcut or paper cut, but it works here. On the anniversary of her sister's death, Talia returns home after curfew, bloodied and bruised. She's desperate to keep it from her parents. She knows what they'll do. But when Autumn and Colin realize what's happened to their daughter, they don't intend to stay idle. Leaving Talia with friends, her parents go after the monsters who hurt their child, but they never expected to find real monsters. They aren't prepared for what's behind the urban legends of Red Walls house. Monsters with white eyes, clawed fingers, and sizzling tongues who ate pieces of their daughter. Wow, that's an intense summary. I'm very interested to hear more about this book. And also Requiem by John Palisano. This is May 13th. I love this cover. It's very plain, like astronaut's like posing for a portrait on a moonscape in deep space, but it's all distressed looking, like a photograph that you would find in an attic or a wet basement or something. It's got this kind of futuristic font. It's a sans serif font, if I recall correctly, because I can't see it right now, but it's got these lines through it, very futuristic looking in sort of like a white to teal look. So yeah, really eye-catching. I'm very curious already. And John Palisano was not the current president of the Horror Writers Association, but the most recently previous one. Ava must fight an entity locked in on taking out the crew of the Eden, a moon-sized cemetery in space. A cemetery in space. Thank you, John Palisano. Everyone wants space marines, right? They want alien, they want space horror. A cemetery in space, so we're getting kind of goth here. And it brings back the souls of the dead buried aboard. One such soul is Ava's lost love, Roland. The spirits of the interned on the Eden haunt those aboard, including a visiting musician that is tasked with writing a new song for the dead. Her requiem calls a cosmic entity that illuminates their darkest fears and secrets. One by one they're driven mad, and Ava fights her grief and must rise up before they are lost and the entity reaches Earth. So yeah, kind of a slowish thing. It's not Space Marines. No wonder this astronaut is just stoically posing for a portrait. Anyhow, this next one caught my eye, although I almost didn't list it because it doesn't sound very horror-y, and it sounds kind of like Ghost, like the Demi Moore Patrick Swayze movie Ghost. Yeah, not my cup of tea usually, but hey, it's got this very font-forward cover with a large serif font, and you won't know what's going on in this summary from the book cover. You see salt. You see what looks like salt being sprinkled into a steaming pot of something, maybe, because you can only see steam rising and salt falling, so it doesn't really tell you much about what's going on. Very black, cyan, blue kind of cover. Constantine can't exactly see the ghosts, but he can taste their favorite foods. Flavors of meals he's never eaten will flood his mouth, a sign that a spirit is present. Kostya has kept these aftertastes a secret for most of his life, But one night he decides to act on what he's tasting and everything changes. What I'm guessing is that he makes what he's tasting. So if he tastes a curry and knows that it's a curry and figures that maybe it must be a korma, then he makes it. I don't know. Something like that. He discovers that he can reunite people with their deceased loved ones, at least for the length of time that it takes them to eat a dish that he's prepared. He thinks his life's purpose might be to offer closure to grieving strangers, and sets out to learn all that he can by entering a particularly fiery ring of hell, New York's culinary scene. Well, But as his kitchen skills catch up with his ambitions, Kostya is too blind to see the catastrophe looming in the afterlife. And one person who knows that he must be stopped also happens to be falling in love with him. So it is like romance forward, food writer like forward, because it is food journalism that they're doing. So if you like watching Hell's Kitchen and wish it was a horror story with a love interest, then this might be your thing. I could see this appealing to a lot of people, actually, just not me. The next one, I didn't like the cover, but it sort of fit with this aftertaste. It's called Feeders. So I thought that they fit kind of together here. So May 20th, a novel by Matt Serafini. Feeders, a novel. It's got this like kind of ugly cover, but we've got that black and bluish color thing like the previous book, but it's like a cyan green, not quite a teal, a sort of a weird forest green going on. It shows chat bubbles and emojis and a red font that doesn't really go with that background at all. Like the red and green Christmas kind of colors have always just not, looked right to me. It feels a little disjointed. But hey, cover aside, we have a very interesting description. When a video depicting the brutal murder of a former classmate leaks online, Kylie, whose dreams of becoming a successful influencer are frustratingly elusive, curiosity gets the better of her, leading to the discovery of an off-the-grid social media app called Monolife. As it turns out, there are certain cryptic rules in the user agreement that must be adhered to, such as interacting with other users at least twice daily, or you risk losing it all, and never ever speaking of Monolife's existence to non-users, or risk dire consequences. This platform primarily rewards the worst in human behavior, and that begins chipping away at Kylie's sanity. Post after post in an ever-increasing audience of immoral fans. Now Kylie is going to find out just how far she'll be willing to go on her unyielding rise to the top, even if that means coming face to face with the frightening and ruthless forces behind Monolife, who see all from deep within the shadows. I really like this idea a lot. Maybe it'll have an alternate cover someday that will look more interesting to me. But the description is very, very interesting. Now, one of the two very big name writers that we have with books coming out in May is Dean Koontz. Going Home in the Dark by Dean Koontz. And the cover's kind of boring to me. It's got this small town with the letters not quite like the Hollywood sign, but standing up. They're just sans serif Helvetica looking letters. It looks cool, but it's kind of ugly for some reason. It's neat looking. What do you think? Let me know what you think of this. I find this kind of ugly, and it doesn't tell me much about the story. But I don't know. Going Home in the Dark by Dean Koontz. As kids, outcast Rebecca, Bobby, Spencer, and Ernie were inseparable friends in the idyllic town of Maple Grove. 3 of them left to pursue lofty dreams and achieved them. Only Ernie never left. When he falls into a coma, his 3 amigos feel an urgent need to return home. Don't they remember people lapsing into comas back then? And those people always woke up, didn't they? After 2 decades, not a lot has changed in Maple Grove, especially Ernie's obnoxious, scary mother, but Rebecca, Bobby, and Spencer begin to remember a hulking murderous figure and weirdness piled on mystery that they were made to forget. As Ernie sinks deeper into darkness, something strange awaits any friends who tries to save him. Any friends who tries to save him. Sounds like weird grammar. I don't know. I'll trust Dean Koontz, right? And now a book that is doing the rounds. I've seen a lot of people really enjoying this. We Live Here Now, a novel by Sarah Pinborough, and this comes out May 20th. It has a really pretty monotone red cover that looks sort of like watercolor layers of a house and sort of a swamp and some birds and a lovely white serif font over top, which I always like a good, nice serif font. After an accident that nearly kills her, Emily and her husband Freddie move from London to a beautiful Dartmoor country house called Larkin Lodge. The house is gorgeous, striking, and to Emily, something about it feels deeply wrong. Old boards creak at night, fires go out, and books fall from the shelves, and all of it stems from a terrible present that she feels in the third floor room. But these things only happen when Emily's alone. So are they happening at all? She's still medically fragile. Her post-sepsis condition can cause hallucinatory side effects, and that means she can't fully trust her own senses. Freddie doesn't notice anything odd and is happy with their chance at a fresh start. So yes, I like this. And it's not, I don't think, from this summary, a woman who's being told that she's crazy. It's a woman who's feeling crazy and suspecting it of herself, that she's the unreliable narrator here. And I like that. That's refreshing. Now, to end the month with 2 more books, we have The Malthusian Correction by J.G. Faraday, and this comes out May 27th. And there's only 1 more book. I bet you can guess which one it is. But yes, The Malthusian Correction, backlit shadows of men walking kind of in a blue and black forest. Blood splattered and dripping down the cover, kind of added as an afterthought, I think, behind this blocky impact style sans serif font. I like that white blocky sans serif font. It feels like I've said that a couple times this video, so maybe that's a trend too. It's impressionistic, but it's effective. And I think we've seen like zombie pictures like this, so maybe that's what it's sort of kind of trying to bring to mind. Although from the summary, I don't think it's a zombie story whatsoever. When Roger leaves the house, because he has an urge to take a walk, like we all do. I'm doing this after I finish recording. I'm going to go take a walk. If I come back, we'll see. No one, not even him, realizes he's about to change the world as we know it. Roger's sudden desire quickly turns into something more as both his mind and body begin to change. He's consumed by his need to keep walking, and soon he's leaving a small town of Rocky Point behind. By the time his family realizes he's gone, he's miles away and is entering an altered state of consciousness. As the days go by and Roger continues his unnatural journey, his body begins to deteriorate. He also attracts followers, all of them murmuring the same chilling words. The growing horde travels down the East Coast, growing in size every day. In less than a week, the phenomena spreads across the world. So it's like it wants you to think it's zombies, but I feel like we're not supposed to think it's zombies. So yeah, the Malthusian Correction. This is something that's supposed to, from the further summary, like reset the world. And I'm very, very intrigued. I've not read any J.G. Faraday, and I've traveled in circles of J.G. Faraday. I know a lot of people read to J.G. Faraday. If you have, let me know if you think this is a good spot to start. And the final book that we have this month is Never Flinch, a novel by Stephen King, May 27th as well. It's got this white kind of like blind justice, Lady Justice, on a white background. So it's alabaster on white, kind of striking. Her blindfold is red and dripping blood. So yeah, really ominous, really striking, really unsettling. And it's got this black crayon font over the top. Really cool. I think this is very stark and jarring. When the Buckeye City Police Department receives a disturbing letter from a person threatening to kill 13 innocents and 1 guilty in an act of atonement for the needless death of an innocent man, Detective Izzy Janes has no idea what to think. Are 14 citizens about to be slaughtered in an unhinged act of retribution? As the investigation unfolds, Izzy realizes that the letter writer is deadly serious, and she turns to her friend Holly Gibney for help. Hey, it's Holly. Meanwhile, controversial and outspoken women's rights activist Kate McKay is embarking on a multi-state lecture tour, drawing packed venues of both fans and detractors, someone who vehemently opposes Kate's message of female empowerment is targeting her and disrupting her events. At first, no one is heard, but the stalker is growing bolder and Holly is hired as Kate's bodyguard, a challenging task with a headstrong employer and a determined adversary driven by wrath and his belief in his own righteousness. I have not read a Stephen King book in quite a while, so I'm kind of looking forward to this. And I feel like we can pop in here, you know? Like, if you've read Mr. Mercedes, you can have not read any other Holly stuff. If you've only watched the show, you could probably pop in here. If you've not read any of it, if he's doing what Stephen King does best, you can insert yourself into this story. And I think that's what I'm just going to do. I still need to read Revival. I have The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon on tap. I've got a lot of catching up to do. And it's not that I haven't read any Stephen King in between there, because I did read You Like It Darker, like right after it came out, really. So I'm not completely neglectful, but I am not a constant reader, unfortunately, and I used to be. I did used to be. So have you read Never Flinch? Is it on your list? Are any of these other books on your list? Are you a Dean Koontz fan? Let me know in the comments below if there's any of these books that really caught your eye. And there's going to be a few of them on the list. I think that on the poll is going to be a Stephen King, Dean Koontz sound off. We'll find out. But yeah, if there's anything that you think I ought to be reading, or anything that should have been on this list that I missed or that you wrote, let me know as well. Thank you so much for watching, and have an ooky, spooky day.